It's time once again for the Spearsy Spin with your host, the young and semi-talented Mike Spears.
Hi folks, and welcome to the Spearsy Spin. As always, I'm your host, the somewhat talented Mike Spears. We have a lot of stuff to go over here and a lot of information. We're going to start out today talking about the FISA Court, what it is, what it does, and why is it. The other thing we'll be talking about is wiretapping at the Trump Tower. Did it happen? If so, why? If it didn't happen, where did the president get the idea that it did? And finally, we're going to talk about Berkeley, California, the home of the nice people, where they really care about what you think, as long as it matches pretty much what they talk about. But there was a peaceful Trump rally there, and it turned a bit ugly. We're going to talk about what it means and why that's happening. But first, we want to talk about the FISA Court and what the FISA Court is all about, why it was started, and what it's actually for. Now, the FISA Court, FISA stands for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. And basically, that was started around 1978, I believe. And basically what it is, it is so that the government, and respectfully of that, would be FBI, CIA, NSA, although the NSA really doesn't need the FISA Court to tap your phone. They're good like that. But anyway, these agencies can actually go to this court, and they can provide the court with ample suspicion, I should say, not necessarily proof, but suspicion that you may be possibly providing foreign sources with information that might be detrimental to the good of the United States. So they being the FISA Court, they take a look at the requests that are coming from the respective agencies, and the FISA Court will decide whether or not a surveillance warrant can be put in place. Especially if they mention that there's foreign spies that might be inside the United States. So that's what the FISA Court is for. So now that we know what it's for, now we need to, yes, hard to believe, I know, I went to school. Anyway, it's hard to believe that we're now talking about the former president of the United States, Barack Obama, who President Trump is now claiming may have tapped his phones at Trump Tower in New York City. And we would have to ask ourselves, when we look at the credibility of the former president, are there some questions there that might make us say, I wonder? Well, when we go back and we look at some of the things that Edward Snowden, who, as you know, was working for a contractor for the CIA, who left the United States and told us a whole bunch of things that were going on that we didn't know, and we still don't know everything that's coming out. But he now is I guess he's a permanent resident of Russia. But there was things that were detrimental, even through Mr. Snowden, that came out against the Obama administration. But see if this rings a bell. Do you remember when President Obama was pushing his health care agenda, the Affordable Care Act, and he said, he was trying to sell this to the American people, he said, look, if you have a doctor and you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan. And this is going to save you $2,500 a year on or about, and possibly, and maybe, and who knows. Well, obviously, that was all, we don't want to use the word lie, but perhaps the good president handled the truth a little bit carelessly. We might be able to say it that way. So we're now looking at this allegation that is coming out from the Trump folks about President Obama. And we look at some other things. Now, President Obama has in the past actually been accused of these things. And, in one particular instance, not only was he accused of spying on, I guess, an American citizen, but there's actually proof behind it. And you may remember, what was it, 2013, I think, a White House news correspondent for Fox News, his name was James Rosen. He was being investigated by the Obama administration. Then it was under the Attorney General Eric Holder. Now, Holder had told the FISA Court, in order to get a warrant to go through his email, Gmail, whatever, track his whereabouts, what he's doing, who he's talking to, and so on. Apparently, Mr. Holder said that he may be a conspirator with regard to espionage and possibly even a criminal co-conspirator. So Mr. Rosen's phone lines, which I guess he had a whole bunch of them because he's in that business, I guess they were all hacked and listened to and so on. Now, at that time, the United States, the news agencies at least, were really interested in what was going on in North Korea because, they were playing with missiles and they were saying all this stupid stuff, how they're going to, blow up America. And they even had a video of, I think it was New York City being nuked by North Korea. So some pretty crazy stuff there, but how they got to the point that they thought James Rosen was involved, I don't know. At the end of it, I know that Mr. Holder was, sorry he did that, I guess. And we have a clip here, courtesy of Fox News, which is actually James Rosen talking about the investigation about him and what it was like, what he thought, and why he thinks, hey, maybe something to this. Give a listen.
Well, good to be with you, Pete, Abby, and Ed. And they teach us in TV school never to contradict the anchor unless it's absolutely necessary. And here I guess it is, because I have to clarify that I was not wiretapped. My parents were not wiretapped, which is where you place a listening device on someone's telephone line and you listen to their conversations. What happened to me was that the Attorney General, Eric Holder, under Barack Obama as president, secretly designated me a criminal co-conspirator and a flight risk, and thereby had a federal judge give the government permission to rifle through all my Gmails. They could read the emails, and then also to get all the phone records associated with about 20 phones that I used at that time in my reporting. All of those phone lines were 202 or 703, which are the area codes associated with Washington and the Pentagon, Northern Virginia area. One of those 20 phone lines was 718, and that referred to my parents' house on Staten Island at that time.
Wow. And James, to remind people, what were they looking for? What were they trying to investigate here?
The Obama administration had launched an investigation to determine my sourcing for a series of reports I did on that time from the State Department about North Korea's nuclear weapons program. After all of this was disclosed by the Washington Post 4 years after that designation was applied to me, and that's how I learned about it, along with the rest of the world, President Obama, in a speech at National Defense University on counterterrorism, pronounced himself troubled by the idea that a working journalist would be criminalized for doing his job, and demanded that the person who was responsible for this, Eric Holder, the Attorney General, should get to the bottom of what happened and provide some reforms at the Department of Justice, which were, in turn, enacted.
Well, James, to bring it to this story and why we had you on today, obviously with the current president's tweets yesterday, alleging that President Obama was behind wiretapping him, wiretapping Trump Tower. Separate case, but related in the sense that the reaction from the Obama camp yesterday, as you saw, was President Obama never ordered surveillance of any American citizen. Thin line there, which is he didn't personally order it, but clearly in your case, someone in his administration ordered surveillance of you, a U.S. citizen, period.
That's right. The surveillance extended, for example, to monitoring my whereabouts and my use of the swipe badge that I had as a member of the State Department press corps when I was leaving the building, where I was using telephones and so forth. And that was attributed to Eric Holder, who later told the Washington Post that it was the greatest regret of his tenure. And that, by all accounts, this was illegal and unprecedented. Not even Neil Sheehan, who was the New York Times reporter back in 1971 who published the Pentagon Papers, 7,000 classified documents, was designated by the Nixon administration as a criminal co-conspirator in a violation of the Espionage Act. So that was an honor that I had all unto myself. But in the case of what we're hearing now from President Trump, there's just a lot we don't know. We have to caution our viewers that we hope to learn more about it. But if it's true that the Obama administration went to the FISA Court to get some kind of surveillance at Trump Tower, whether it was of a computer tower or whether it was of the president's telephone, as he seems to believe when he uses terms like wiretapping, we would like to know what basis of probable cause would have been asserted in order to secure that permission for that surveillance.
James, I think your perspective and your voice this morning is exactly what the American people need to hear. As someone who has personally experienced being investigated by the government, to say, everyone take a step back. Anything is possible in this situation. We just have to wait and see how everything unfolds. Really important voice to have this morning, James. Thanks for being here.
In a recent closed-door speech to donors, politicians, and media, Bill Clinton spoke about American gun owners. Quote, a lot of these people, all they've got is their hunting and their fishing, or they've been listening to this stuff for so long that they believe it all, unquote. And we all remember Barack Obama's 2008 comments to a room of San Francisco elites. Quote, it's not surprising then they get bitter. They cling to guns or religion, unquote. The arrogance of their superiority requires this reminder. They don't rule us. They don't give us rights. We grant them power. They don't make us safe. We pay to protect them. They don't make us free. We're free already. And as long as we have the Second Amendment, we always will be. We are America, and our politicians are only as powerful as we, the people, allow them to be.
I have a message from Mike Spears at the Spearsy Spin. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a quality show, I can tell you I have no class. But what I do have is a very particular set of radio skills. These skills make this show a favorite for people like you. If you subscribe now, that will be the end of it. If you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will bug you until you subscribe.
Don't miss even one show. Subscribe to the Spearsy Spin now. Click that subscribe button and be sure to also click that bell next to the subscribe button so you'll be notified when we post new videos.
Alrighty, and we are back here with the Spearsy Spin, and there must be something to this wiretapping down at Trump Tower. And the reason I say that is apparently Donald Trump's daughter was spending some time there, and I guess she was talking to her husband, and he was far away somewhere. I don't know, maybe in the UK, wherever. But, you know, they're young and they're in love. And so it came time to hang up. And so he says, well, you hang up first. And she says, no. You hang up first. Oh, no. You hang up first. And she says, no. You hang up first. This goes on for like 10 minutes. Finally, they said, President Obama got on and said, "Oh, for God's sakes, I'll count to 3 and we'll all hang up." I'll wait for you to get done laughing, and then we'll go on. So, who knows what's going on here for sure? And I think we do have to wait to get to the bottom of it, but there certainly seems to be something amiss. But who knows? We'll wait. Moving along. We're going to talk about Berkeley, California. Berkeley, California, home of the, well, how would you put this lightly? Home of the folks that want to get along with everyone, providing everyone agrees with whatever they say. And that, it's hard to say that really, because that's really taking a broad stroke, with a paintbrush and painting everyone. But so many liberal folks out there, and of course, California typically, definitely has that flavor, that liberal flavor. But here's what's going on. There was a peaceful Trump rally out there, and the folks just hanging out and talking about President Trump, supporting President Trump with their signs and everything, which is fine. When things turned a bit ugly because these anti-Trump protesters, I don't know if I'd go as far as to call them protesters, thugs I would think would be a better name. And so they come and they start hooting and hollering and using the dreaded F word, dun dun dun, F this, F that, and But the Trump supporters, being the good, solid folks that they are, they took it all in took it all in steed, I guess would be a way. So here's the deal. All of a sudden, some folks got beat up a bit. An elderly Trump supporter, he got sprayed in the face with pepper spray by the anti-Trump people. And, there's some pushing and shoving. Well, then the anti-Trump people decided that, because the police were there in riot gear for the most part, that they would go and yell at the police and call the police all sorts of names. And I guess one person did get arrested. But it's amazing to me how anybody, it's the way I was raised, I suppose, but how anybody could stand there and say, F the police, and there's one there that was in the anti-Trump group who was screaming all sorts of racist things. The President Trump is racist. The police are racist. The police destroy everything. This person went on to say that the police are going to destroy the kids, that they're going to destroy the white people, they're going to destroy black people. Basically, I guess they're destroying everybody. But they got their work cut out for them. So, it just this narrative goes on, and you have to ask yourself, when folks are at home sitting in their recliners and they're watching this on TV and they see, the Trump folks, they're very, relaxed, well-postured, typically a little bit older. We suspect probably, range of 35 to 65, somewhere in there, I would think. And then all of a sudden you have these people of all nationalities and so on coming in there, and they're using that language, and they're beating up old people, and they're screaming at the police, threatening the police. What message are these folks sending? And here's the deal, and this is true. I'm seeing it even in my part of the world, and that is that mostly independents are switching over to Trump. And a few Democrats are switching over to Trump because they do not want to be aligned with this type of barbaric thinking, this type of barbaric, draconian approach to protesting, because it accomplishes nothing, absolutely nothing. And they just don't don't get that. And people like Michael Moore continue to incite this. They continue to get their rapid response teams out whenever there's a Republican out giving a speech, whether it's, a senator, it's a congressman, representative, whatever, and they're out there disrupting, the Republican folks. And it's backfiring horribly in their face. And I'm thinking, is this really all you have to offer? But it gets worse. I mean, when President Trump was giving his address to Congress, many of the Democrats wouldn't even applaud anything, wouldn't even get up. Nancy Pelosi sat there and, she looked like she was sitting in her own funeral. That's how down she was. And so when the president was talking about, well, we're bringing in all these jobs, we got Ford, we got this, we got that, and the folks are getting up and they're clapping because, there's new jobs coming in, Nancy Pelosi and many of the other Democrats there at the speech didn't get up, didn't clap. When the president had talked about, trying to take care of the issues regarding, maybe some terrorism and things like that, and how we want to end that, nothing there. They didn't get up for that. So, he goes on to talk about, we're going to have some more monies flowing through the country, which is going to help. And, folks in Virginia, West Virginia, are getting back to work, and isn't it a great thing? So they're not getting up, they're not clapping even. And so you got to ask yourself, well, gee, job sounds good. I think I could say he's okay, right? Because he's bringing jobs, and we know that's true because we know the corporations, some of them that he's talked to. And defeating ISIS, I think that's a great idea. I mean, that's just me. And these folks didn't get up, they didn't clap. So what? You support ISIS? I'm just asking. And making the economy better, wouldn't that make sense? Wouldn't you at least get up, at least stand up, even if you didn't clap? No. So I guess they don't want the economy better. I got to tell you, it's interesting times to be in right now. It's very interesting times because I don't ever recall seeing anything this bizarre from a specific group. A friend of mine who's much smarter than me, that doesn't take a lot and has a bit more in his pedigree than I do. But he's asked a lot of times, and this is serious, he has been asked this several times. And the question is, do you think the left-wing folks, the real out there liberals, is it a mental illness? And his steadfast answer remains, I don't think so, because I don't know how a mental illness could travel to half the population, which shouldn't really go that far probably because not everybody's liberal. There's some Democrats, there's independents, then there's free thinkers, and then you have the Republicans and the far rights, and that goes on and on. But just to have that question posed to someone with a highly regarded psychological stature, not only practicing, but as a teacher in a college setting, being asked that question, wouldn't that send a message to you that, wow, are these people whacked? I mean, that's probably not the clinical term we're looking for, but think about that. To ask a college professor of psychology, do these far left liberals are they mentally ill? That's paramount in many ways to me. But what do I know? We got to take a break here, and yep, I see the thing is flashing. So we got to take a break, and we'll be back.
To the Ayatollahs of Iran and every terrorist you enable, Listen up. You might have met our fresh-faced flower child president and his weak-kneed Ivy League friends. But you haven't met America. You haven't met the heartland, where the people will defend this nation with their bloody, calloused, bare hands. That's what it takes. You haven't met the steel workers and the hard rock miners or the swamp folks in Cajun country who can wrestle a full-grown gator out of the water. You haven't met the farmers, the cowboys, the loggers, and the truck drivers. You don't know the mountain men who live off the land or the brave cops who fight the good fight in the urban war zones. No, you've never met America. And you ought to pray you never do. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
One of the great things about having you here is that I get to tell a farm joke. Now, first I need a setting, but Rick, you're from Kansas, right?
You bet.
Okay, this takes place in Kansas. There was an old Kansas farmer there. He had a piece of creek bottom land that had never been developed at all. It was all rocks and brush and all messed up, and he started in on it, clearing it, the underbrush, and hauling away the rocks, then cultivating the soil there, and he planted a garden, everything from vegetables on to corn, and it really became a garden spot, and he was pretty proud of what he'd done. So one Sunday morning in church after the service, he asked the preacher if he wouldn't stop by to have a look. Well, the preacher arrived, and he took one look, and he said, "Oh, this is wonderful." He said, "These are the biggest tomatoes I've ever seen. Praise the Lord." He said, "Those green beans, that squash, those melons," he said, "the Lord really has blessed this place. And look at the height of that corn." He said, "The God has really been good." And the old boy was listening to all this, and he was getting more and more fidgety, and finally he blurted out, "Reverend, I wish you could have seen it when the Lord was doing it by himself." The lawyer said to him, "While you were lying there at the scene of the accident, didn't someone come up to you and ask you how you were feeling, and didn't you answer that you never felt better in your life?" Well, he said, yes, I remember that happening. Well, later on redirect, another lawyer was asking the question, and he said, "What were the circumstances when you gave that answer as to how you felt?" Well, he said, "I was lying there," and he said, "a car came up and a deputy sheriff got out. He said, my horse was neighing with pain and kicking. He had 2 broken legs. The deputy sheriff put the gun in his ear and put the horse out of his misery. He said, my dog had a broken back and was whining with pain, and he went over, did the same thing, put there and shot him. And then he came over to me and said, now, how are you feeling?"
You are now listening to The Spearsy Spin with your host, Mike Spears.
As a last note here before we sign off, Paul Ryan, who as you know is the speaker there, he says there's no evidence to support anyone from the Trump organization being linked to any Soviet Russian spies or giving away information or whatever it is. That it changes every day. So whatever it is as of today, no evidence. Now tomorrow we're going to be taking on some topics that a lot of talk shows don't like to touch, because we're going to be talking about transgenders. We're going to talk about gays, lesbians, and why the Democrats, have used these people. And we're also going to talk about why the LGBT and Q is tired of it, and why they're just tired of being tired of being put in the spotlight as victims when they're truly not. So we'll be looking at that tomorrow and talking about it. Please make sure that you're with us. Remember, there's only one world, and we all gotta try to live in it. Thanks, folks. We will see everyone. Well, we'll hear everyone tomorrow.
Thanks for being with us today. Until next time.